a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Purchasing a narrowboat, it's a lot of information out there, and I just thought I'd put in my little bit and just say, just some advice generally about the hull, because although, you know, I'm certainly not an expert, but I've worked with some people, very clever people around boats, and just what I've learned buying and selling a few boats, building our own boats, as in building the interiors, and we've obviously looked at hulls and bought hulls. So just to talk about terminology and what it means on a hull. So obviously you've got your cabin sides, generally 4mm, 5mm thickness of steel. You'll have your base plate down here, generally 10mm of steel. The way it's made, this one's actually been plated, I can see, because it's down there. Let's go to a slightly newer boat. So the way that it's made is the base plate comes out. So that's a 10mm base plate, and then the 6mm will meet it, and it's welded along here. Now, often this is called the chine, or a sacrificial chine, and this will wear. I'm going to show you a boat that we've just bought that we're about to do the metal work on. That will be on the Wharf Diary main video. That you can see the chine has worn away. So another boat here. This is a Liverpool boat. You can tell Liverpool boats because they have this mark in the one that we saw on the front just now, Bramble. That's a Liverpool boat as well. This boat has hardly been in the water. So 10mm plate comes here. You can see there's a fair bit of sacrificial chine along there. And then when it wears away, it can be because it's up against concrete and it's sat in a particular place for a while, and just that rubbing away, it rubs the steel away. Very, very good example of that is this boat here. You can see there's literally no chine on it here, and this has actually gone to that's the weld there. So we're going to talk about the survey in a minute, but this has been pulled up by the surveyor. He's saying that we need to weld a bit of D-section there. We're not sure yet. Andy, who's built boats, he'll advise us we're possibly going to put a bit of D-section underneath. Sometimes you can build it up with weld, or you can weld some bar in there, some round bar, flat bar. Yeah, there are all different ways. It's pretty much what you prefer, but all you're trying to do is protect that, because obviously where the weld is, if it goes through, you've got a hole in your boat. Now this boat, so it had a survey yesterday. She's about 30 foot, made with 6mm steel. I believe it's 4mm on there, because, and we need to know because we're going to be changing all the steel. We're changing the window configuration, but that's later video. But we're just talking about the hull at the moment. The gunnels down. Gunnels, just incidentally called gunnels because in the old days, even on the Elizabethan, the Armada ships, they were made in a similar way, and your strength is here, and that's the gunnel. The guns used to sit on there, which is why they're called the gunnels. So this boat here, so very good readings. Unusually for a 30-foot boat, you generally expect to see 6mm on the base. This is 10mm, so we know that because these are the measurements coming through from under there. That's what he's indicating there. It's nice, very nice and thick base plate. Now here, 6mm, 5.6. They're good readings, so 0.4 of a mil. So if you think about a millimetre on your ruler, how thin that is, it's not a problem. However, this boat has, it's a common problem with boats, and it manifests itself in different ways. Pitting. So pitting can be caused by electrolysis or just a blemish in the steel, and it's basically a divot in your steel. So anodes are put on to protect that, sacrificial anodes. So this is made of a softer metal, so we weld them to the hull, and they're replaced when they get worn away. Generally, if you can see the brand, and this is borderline whether you change this. I will change it because it's my boat and I'm selling it, and I want to be confident that the new owner has a good load of life in the anodes. So these are put onto the electrolysis eats away at the anodes as opposed to the hull. Now this, again, unusually on this boat, that's a different sheet there. So that's that bit there, and you can see like a definitive line here where it's a different sheet. You can see from there to there, it's behaved differently in the water. So that has been dappled or corroded or pitted. No explanation why. I remember back in the days they used to say there was a certain car that you wouldn't buy because of the miners' strike and the steel wasn't as good. I don't know if it's the same thing. I don't know if it was treated differently. I don't know if that's because that was bend, it had to be treated. But anyway, so it has some pitting and some serious deep pits. Look on the starboard side. So this looks like a child's had a field day with the crayons, but if we look in here, and some of them are really, really deep. In fact, some of them are like bullet holes. So here's the question: overplating. You looked at boats. Has it been overplated? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? The surveyor recommended overplating pretty much all the way down this side, all the way above the waterline. And what you're looking for is a good place to weld to. If you're buying a narrowboat, this isn't something you should really be worrying about. You just want it to be done. So this is just, I'm just talking about condition survey, just so that when you read a survey, you know what it's on. When they talk about pitting and pitfalls, no pun intended, that you know what they're talking about. So where to go up to on the plating? Well, generally you'd want to go up to good steel. So here we'd sort of go up to here, but he's recommended overplating. We are really of the opinion it's going to be sat outside for a while, and because everything else is so good, we might pad weld it, puddle weld it, pit weld it, whatever they're calling it, and it's basically literally just you build up these, clean it all off, we'll probably needle gun the whole site, clean it up, see where the pits are, measure them, and then fill them and grind them off. Now young Jake on the boat next door, he's been doing this on his hull, and all these are pits that have been filled. I mean, literally there's hundreds and hundreds of here. It's slightly different here because it's not so dappled, it's more like specific pits, which we'll get to. So that's the sides and pitting. We're just going to talk a little bit about other issues with the whole condition survey in here. So we've got the tiller, down to the rudder, down to, this is the skeg, okay? So the skeg runs along here. It actually is meant to, the rudder can pop out of this, I'm not supposed. So sometimes you're going along and you hit something underneath and it lifts it out. This one there isn't room and it'll always stay in the cup. There's the cup there. So rudder stock going down and the tiller up there. So it's a bearing in here. So this, it's a fair bit of play in here. Too much for us. We'll correct that. We'll either weld it, fill it, shim it, but we'll make something that keeps that in there. Just because when it's going along and it's rattling around, it's much more comfortable, much more pleasant to manoeuvre and steer if that's tight. Here we have the Uxter plate. So, or called the counter base. This is your counter. This is your swim. It comes out like this, is your swim. So the Uxter plate, how deep should it sit? This is possibly deep, but it definitely needs to be in the water, between 1 inch and 2 inches. This is because otherwise you can have ventilation over your rudder, so you don't want air. You don't want air getting under there, so that's called ventilation. If there's free water, if there's air under there, it can disturb and get caught out, and then the propeller doesn't perform properly. different to cavitation, which is caused by the whipping up of the water, which can be a bent propeller blade, or singing of the prop singing. Again, that's caused, can be caused just a little dink in the blade. It can cause it to sing. Sometimes a brand new blade can sing, and that just gives this sort of whirring noise that people think it's engine, but it can be the prop. Just another thing, just generally to look at. So yeah, the absolutely most important thing about buying your narrowboat is your hull. If you're buying a fairly new boat, you don't have to worry about it. If you're buying an old boat, it doesn't mean that because it's 40, 50 years old, it's necessarily in worse condition. It's how it's been looked after over its life. If it's been blacked regularly, it could be fine. This boat has not been looked after. So which is the pity, you can see just by the state of it, see by the state of the engine, just not a very well looked after boat. But we'll be putting it right before we sell it and pass it on. And I think, just a few more things. These are your skin fittings. Skin fittings, they have to sit a certain distance above the waterline. Again, slightly different to hire boats and leisure boats. Also underneath we have, it might be easy to show you on this boat, we have the weed hatch. So the weed hatch, you can see under there, basically that comes out from inside. You get down to the propeller. Where the propeller sits, that's pretty good, a little bit tight to the boss there. This is the boss where the propeller shaft comes out of. Could possibly be about the thickness of the propeller. Again, different schools of thought. Different people have different ideas. These are all different configurations. Different thicknesses of plate here, different thicknesses here. So yeah, all narrowboats are different. So please comment, add anything, because I just think the more knowledge we share, the better informed people are. It's probably buying a boat is going to be the biggest expense, one of the biggest expenses in your life, after a house. And just caveat emptor, buyer beware. And again, look at as many boats as possible. I'll add a quick video later on when I get back to my desk, and I'm just going to talk you through a survey, the hull condition survey. Again, essential really, whether you have a hull condition survey or a full purchase survey. I think a full purchase survey, it may just worry you because things inside the engine, the pumps, everything can pretty much be sorted out. Your hull is your base and the most important thing. A hull condition survey, you might want to do that if you're going to knock money off and say, oh look, they noticed that there's things like if there's a spongy floor that may have been water ingress at the time, your base floor might need replacing. Those things can be expensive, so you'd want to know about that. Yeah, so I'm going to I'll talk you through a survey just to look. And the other thing to bear in mind, if your boat's over 30 years old, for insurance reasons, you will need a hull condition survey. So yeah, and shop around, go to a reputable boat builder, make sure they do know what they're doing. When we took over, I used to think, oh, they just make out it's a bit of a black art, it's just welding at the end of the day. But it's not. It does have to be done well, especially below the waterline. Obviously it needs to be watertight, and water gets in and diesel gets in or diesel gets out. So yeah, make sure. So like, thumbs up, enjoy, share, whatever those rules are. But yeah, please leave comments or ask questions. Advice is free.